Hello, welcome to New Meta Podcast, episode 116. We're talking about the mid-game today, approaching it from many angles, also defining the mid-game. Joining me as always, Adam and Marco. Marco, welcome to the podcast. Checking in at the start of the pod as always. Do you have anything unusual to report today?
Oh, I wish I did have something unusual, but no, not yet.
Just the usual positivity, the pre-pod positivity.
Utter positivity. The only mindset I know is PMA.
The only mindset coupled with Dota is positivity. It's just a game it's impossible to feel negative about.
Impossible.
Adam, how are you doing today? Do you have anything unusual to report?
No. Unusual? Nope.
Just the usual negativity towards Dota 2.
I don't know. I am positive towards Dota 2.
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely the negative one this week, at least until today's heroic ranked comebacks, but we'll get to that in a minute maybe. Or in fact now perhaps. We just fly into the games. A few little intro bits and bobs, housekeeping I suppose if you want to call it. Talking about how our games, of course, but also where's the patch? And answering a question as well about how we got our names, our aliases that I sometimes stay at the start of the pod, those being TheMagicT, Takk0 and ComeDineWithMe, but we get there in a minute. First of all, how are games? Marco, how have your games been this week?
Pretty solid.
Played games?
Yeah, honestly, the last few days have been poor, I admit. However, there's a big... this weekend, it's a long weekend. I've got 3 days. And with Adam snapping on my heels, I actually am going to have to fly into some POS 5 ranked. It's going to be big.
Nice. It's always exciting when there's ranked on the table across multiple podcasters. Usually it's just one or maybe two active ranked players, but perhaps this weekend it'll be 3, who knows?
I've definitely been egged on by the Come Dine With Me. I honestly would not be adverse to a 3-man ranked, but Stan's kind of letting us down in that department. Gavin's not allowing it.
Gavin's not allowing it. That is the conspiracy. That's Stan's conspiracy.
I know once Gabe allows it, isn't that like value because he theoretically is higher than what his badge will be? And then we get some good old wins?
Maybe. I won't be higher than... Once I get Divine 1, I won't be higher because I'll lose the false sense of injustice that I currently have, and then and then it will be fair. As soon as I hit Divine, the like arbitrary 40 MMR from just a random spiked win, everything will be okay again. So at that point, it will be fine. But Adam, what's been going on? Because Marco's alluded to the fact that you're snapping on his heels. What's been going down in your Dota world?
I think I reeled off 6 or 7 ranked wins in a row.
Fuck it out.
Like it's nothing.
It was nice. All off of Crystal Maiden 5 and Jakiro 4.
Oof, tasty
like
stuff.
back to back. And then...
That CM is a throwback. Adam knows he can just slap out the 70% CM win rate and just flying up the ladder.
Yeah, whenever I want to. It's the back pocket strat.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, but then I played one yesterday. I got up to like 58-40, which is my highest MMR ever. It's like, all right, here we go. Time to get my one ranked win of the day. And I was reminded about sometimes why Dota can be a not fun experience. It's like a safe lane anti-mage Crystal Maiden. I'm Jakiro 4. So my safe lane is against a Techies Centaur. It's like, that sounds okay. But Crystal Maiden like loses her mind 5 minutes in. Just like, this guy's not a core player, he's so bad, blah, blah, blah. And then spends the rest of the game following the anti-mage around and Crystal Novaing all of his creeps. So he spent 5 times longer in the game griefing than he did playing the game.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Griefing, did you win that game though?
No.
Oh, no. I thought, was that not ranked then?
Are you looking at another game?
No, I'm not looking at another game. But so is your win streak over then?
Yeah, I ripped off 6 or 7 and then lost one finally. I mean, it had to happen, but it was like a non-game, so that was brutal.
What's the MMR? No,
58-10.
Oh, within 200 is 6K.
Yeah, I just need to rip off another 7 and then
easy. We've seen the Come Dine With Me ranked climbs before, so I feel like I'm road to 7K. Let's go.
And the nice thing about NA is that I'm about to break rank 3000, get a 2 in front of my...
Wow. And that carries over when you play on EU, so as far as anyone knows...
I can't wait to get flamed on EU.
You're already way better than Marco, according to... When you play on EU with him, it's like Marco's this unranked immortal, and you're like almost ranked 2K. Easy.
Yep. Yeah. I have one other game story, which is what I played last night, and won a game where the kill score was 52-26, but we were the 26.
Wow.
And won. And playing with good old Saul, and he was mid Wind Ranger against a Ricky mid, and Saul ended up 4-14-7. His only item is a 4-staff, and the Ricky was 24-3 with an Echo Saber, MKB Nullifier, and Abyssal Blade. And we won.
How did you win?
Anti-mage. And
did they die and didn't have buybacks and you thrown or something?
They just kind of were throwy. They thought they had it in the bag. And they like triple downed on invis items, and then they had a 4 lifestealer that went Ags. And I was a Grimstroke. So like I had good team fight skills, but if you look at our KDAs, it's like 4-14, 2-11, 2-11, 2-14, and then 16-2. This is like, I had faith. I kept telling everyone, like, anti-mage can carry the game, guys. Just let them cut waves. We'll throw our bodies.
Phenomenal. Dota Buff says you have a 30k gold deficit, 40k XP deficit. This is noob from UA material right now. This has to be the best ever comeback.
It's an epic game. I mean, you look at, we have a 4 Pango who before the game said, "This is my first time playing Pango, guys. Don't flame." And then a 3 Legion that got so upset that it's classified as Jungle Legion Commander by Dota Buff. And like Ricky is 24-3. They have like no recourse for this Ricky hero, and yet somehow they just like give it away.
I can't get
it. And we don't even lose a tier 3. Like we're that far behind and we don't even lose a tier 3. And you just look at we just took like tier 2, tier 3 racks, tier 4s, and just win.
This must have been the most train 1-by-1 feed ever. I mean, I can't imagine. I just can't understand how you win this game.
It's so weird because it's just a diagonal line upwards from minute 1 in terms of the rating advantage, all the way to 32k, and then 32k. Then
at 32 minutes, it's a K a minute.
Yeah, yeah, and then you win 7 minutes later, still down 20k.
What the hell?
Yep. They had Sven, Ursa, Ricky cores, and then Lifestealer would jump in any of them and press Rage with the Ags, and they have like multiple Abyssal Blades and then Sven Ags. It's like, and like my Ghost Scepter is mega pog for the first like 15 minutes I have it, but then eventually Sven gets Dispel, Stormhammer, and Ricky gets a Nullifier, and then it's like not as good. But somehow we just, I don't know. You can't even say like Legion really dueled anybody. They're 2-11. It's like they can't do anything. Saw Wind Rangers 4-14 literally with just a 4-staff. Doesn't finish MKB in the game, and it's actually kind of easy from the point, that 32-minute point where they throw. It's like, okay, I think we won.
You get Abyssal Blade on AM at 31 minutes, and
that's pretty much it, I think.
That's the turning point. That's crazy, though. That's mad. What a game. I don't really have anything to follow that, a game like that. I do have So I've been playing a bit of ranked and had a couple of... Well, actually, one of my losses was the inspiration for this episode, talking about the mid-game post-laning stage. I've had kind of a bit of grim ranked the last couple of days. Well, I had one super epic game about on Monday or something that genuinely was so epic. I went leaner and went right-click. Something I've been enjoying lately instead of going like the Ags route that I used to do a bit more. And there's rapiers flying left, right and centre. We're against a PA? Let me click into this game actually. We've got a Spectre on our team that's started bad but comes back into it. They have... Oh, they're with Medusa, that's it. So they have... First of all, Medusa goes rapier really early, like before Satanic. Medusa's build was... Mask of Madness, Manta, Scardy, BKB, Butter, Divine Rapier, which I suppose is okay, but Satanic would have been the item that was missing there. And the end of the game, there's a crazy, crazy team fight. The Rapier's dropped by the Medusa that we kill. Spec picks it up. There's a few more seconds of fighting. Then Spec dies. Storm picks it up. Then I kill Storm, take the Rapier. And then it's me and my Treant Protector alive versus Tiny Snapfire. 2-person skirmish. We kill them both. My tree dies. I'm the only hero alive I'm literally the only hero alive. I've got a Divine Rapier. I'm level 29 leaner, so I've got the Fiery Souls talent. And I basically right-click down both tier 4s, because no one's got buyback, everyone's used it already. I right-click down both tier 4s and the throne, basically before anyone respawns. The enemy Viper respawns and starts right-clicking me, using his spells on me. But I just tunnel vision on the throne, which in hindsight was probably bad, because this Viper gets me down to about 10% HP and then the throne explodes. Probably should have just killed him. But there you go. That was quite an epic finish. And then beyond that, had 2 super rough ranked games yesterday where I just got stomped like twice pretty hard. And then I had one game today where I played a Warlock, queued all roles and played Warlock hard support and just got carried. It's actually a really interesting case study because the carry on our team was an Omega Smurf. He's like an 8.2k player. He's actually, his name is TNTCN. He used to be teammates with Saxka and used to play like semi-professionally, 8.2k MMR. Anyway, he's a coach on Gamer Sensei, and he was coaching someone, like playing on their account and talking to them about the game, which is funny because you could hear them talking. He would activate his mic to give Captain some order, and you'd hear some guy in the background like asking something, which is odd because I didn't think anything about it, and then I was like, wait a second, that means they must have been like in the same place. So I don't know how that works. Or maybe I could hear the
video call.
Yeah, some sort of video call. Yeah, maybe that's more likely. Anyway, and
coaching session.
Yeah, it was a live coaching session that I was luckily on the right side of. But it's funny because I'm a Warlock hard support, and we've got a PA, that's our safe lane. Our off lane is Legion Commander and Silencer. Their safe lane is a Morphling and a Shadow Demon, and their off lane is a Phoenix and a Bounty Hunter. So, as the game starts, this PA is on mic straight away saying, try lane this Morph, LC solo top, you'll be fine against Bounty Phoenix, like you'll be okay, you can dispel the Phoenix stuff. You'll get XP and you'll get some farm, like you'll be okay. If we try lane bot with Silencer Warlock, PA will completely destroy this morph and they won't be able to come back at all. Because I'm going to suffer in my XP. Literally explained all of it because I guess he was talking to his player, like the guy who's coaching as well, at the same time as us. I don't know, like free coaching or whatever.
Dual coaching.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm not going to get any we're not going to get any XP from the tri lane. It's going to hurt my XP. But it's going to really hurt Morph's XP. And as a PA, like, I'm totally fine with having lower than normal XP because I know that Morph having lower than normal XP, like, destroys him more than me and will be able to go on them easily because it's like PA in a tri lane. I don't know. Gave all this reasoning of just use all your spells, like use Shadow Word Heal or Shadow Word Death, whatever it's called, and Arcane Curse, constantly spam on Morphling, right click him as much as you can and he won't have a game. because SD and Morph just can't stand up to a tri-lane, even if bounty comes. Like, it's fine, we just get a lane ward. And then the prophecy literally just came true, and it helps that he's 8.2k, no doubt. So if he'd been replaced with an ancient cat PA, maybe it would have been different, but I came out of the game like, wow, that call to tri-lane bot just feels like it just won us the game instantly. They literally didn't have a game on any heroes. The LC has really absolutely fine farm, great XP obviously, and we have a PA that gets this really good start, and the enemy Morph doesn't hit a creep for about 7 minutes in the game. So I thought that was quite interesting. And then I played a lean afterwards that was not particularly of note. That was definitely interesting. Nice to get a free win on the Snorlock.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's pretty.
Yeah, so you gonna hire this guy now?
Yeah,
yeah. $15 an hour. This guy.
You think he can get you Divine 1?
If he's playing on my account, he probably can. I don't know. Yeah.
Need to flame me for making your profile public, private. Stan can't view your games on Dota buff. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, sorry.
I can't see what you're talking about.
The reason for that is because I always thought that when you made your profile private, it meant that Dota buff just missed those games and you could never recover them. So it would always skew your stats. But then Aesthetics, big friend of the pod, told me that you can retroactively update Dota buff with games that you'd previously played while hiding your profile.
Yeah, so now, the stats update, but we just can't see the games you've played
until I update
it was private.
Them. Yeah, yeah.
But I don't think they'll ever appear on Dota buff. It's just the stats will update.
No, the games appear.
I'm on your profile.
Well, I need to do it now.
Is it like a manual thing you update and it puts them all?
So
on?
I go on, where is it? Expose public match data, which is what I've done now. So now I go back to Dota buff, go to settings, and then update match history.
Ah, so it'll flood it with all the games.
It says it usually takes 3 or 4 minutes, but at some point they'll be updated.
Yeah.
So I thought there's no downside to hiding them while I'm playing ranked games. So that's what I did. But maybe something to update pre-pod. It can be my ritual. Thursday afternoons, update Dota buff. Yeah. So, few extra intro things. Adam, where's the patch? What's going on? What are Valve playing at? Why have we not got a patch?
There's 11 more days. They said end of November, right?
Did they say end of November, or did they just say November?
Well, if they say November, it's Valve time.
Yeah.
So
30th.
The 30th or Valve time could mean January.
Yeah.
Is it a hero as well, or is that only next year?
I believe there will be one.
Man, that's hype.
Hero, man. There might be a hero within the next week, potentially, but probably in a week, over a week, maybe. Yeah, very exciting. So that's that to look forward to. Then also question from Wiggy, major friend of the pod, who wants to know how we got our names. And I feel like we went over this one maybe once in the distant past, a distant episode, but no harm in going over it again. So, Marco, what are you known by in the interwebs, and how has that come to pass?
Oh, mine's so bad. So mine's so bad. The alias is Takk0. In recent times, I've reworded it to Marco Takk0 because you introduced me as Marco, aka Takk0. So put it together. The origin's awful. When I made in primary school, literally one singular dinner time that never, maybe spilled over a week, like this phase. Literally primary school. So we're talking like 6, 7, 8-year-olds. The conversation at the table, very, very sophisticated, just naming people with foods that kind of rhyme or sound like the name. So I get Marco Takk0, obviously for the taco, TACO. Yeah. But then when it came to making my first ever email address, I didn't know what to make the email address. Like when you're making your MSN Messenger, you don't want to just do some boring name. You want to spice up a bit. So I was like, what can I do? Oh, I'll just put Marco Takk0, spell it Takko, because I'm like an 8-year-old. And then that's how it came about. And what's funny is I didn't actually go by that alias through my kind of early gaming days in World of Warcraft. I didn't use that. And in like Counter-Strike, some random games, I didn't use that alias until I got to Dota 1.
Trog, never forget.
Yeah, Troll Rogue, never forget Trog. So then, yeah, I guess throughout Dota, it's always been that. So that's something. But the origin's horrible. There's nothing interesting about it.
Reminds me of when I got my first Xbox. I got an Xbox 360 and got Xbox Live Gold membership or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in, I don't know what I would have been, year 6, maybe year 7, which would put me at 11 years old. And I was like, oh man, I've got to have a cool name for my Xbox. I've got to be like a super cool Call of Duty, some sort. It's got to have X's in there and like.
Can I try and name it?
Yeah, go for it.
Was it AX Overkill 9?
AX Overkill 7. You were
7.
AX Overkill 7. Just makes no sense. But that was it. Yeah, very cool. And it had, rather than letters instead, like a 0 instead of a capital O for some reason.
Oh, I'm all about that. That's what I do. I'm onto that train.
Nice.
Did you not put little x, capital X?
It was yeah, weird stuff like that. Yeah, it was great. Good times. Adam, how did you come to get your name?
I was never really beholden to one name until I started to play Reddit Dota 2 League, and I was like, well, if I'm going to be known in this league and have like any sense of continuity, I better just stick with a name. And so my name happened to be at the time Come Dine With Me, named after a BBC, I don't know if you would call that, like, it's not really a game show, but it's kind of like a
it's
game show. I don't know. It's a competition show where basically 4 people host a dinner party, and the other 3 people, like, so it's a group of 4 people, one person hosts the dinner party, other 3 go and give a score out of 10, and then it kind of switches around so everybody has to host, and whoever has the most points at the end or the highest score gets £1,000. It's like such a minuscule amount of money, but it's a pretty good time. People get pretty upset.
Some golden television has spawned out of Come Dine With Me.
Yeah, but that has been my longest Steam name by, a long shot. It's like 2 years if you go to my Dota buff aliases. The last time I had changed it was 2018 when it was Yikes, and before that it was Cheap as Chips. Remember that one?
One that lasted a while was Crab Mentality.
Yeah, the Crab Mentality was a good one.
I remember You're Not Wild, You're Mild. That one as well.
Yeah, they got 2 Green Gaming as well. Yeah,
Nice.
Growing up, I think like Cats and Hats was one I used a lot, and then like Doogie Meowser was one I used a lot. But we're just stuck with the old Come Dine With Me now.
Nice. Yeah. There's a player called Come With Me.
Yeah.
So you're like the extra.
That's what I thought for a second. Is like people might think I'm making a play on this really toxic CIS Dota pro from back in the day. He's like kind of like Lil. He never really could stick on a team because he would just erode team dynamics.
Right.
Also, looking at my Steam profile, to like see all these previous names and stuff, because they give you more names going further back than Dota buff. So I'm looking at my profile, and in the comments on October 27th, someone took the time to comment on my Steam profile, really pathetic shit-stain account buyer. So it's pretty epic.
Yeah, that's a badge of honor.
Yeah.
My name's actually very simple. So I started playing StarCraft 2, and believe it or not, in that time in my life, I'd began to be very embarrassed about my previous alias being AX Overkill 7 from Xbox. That's one of those where it cost money, Microsoft points, to change your name.
Yep.
And so after about 6 months of having AX Overkill 7, I was like, well, this is awful. I want to change it to like a funny name or just a name that makes me sound like I'm not 11 years old. But I didn't care about it enough to ever pay for a name change. So I got to StarCraft 2, and now I was like, oh, what am I going to call myself? I'll call myself TheMagicT, because I knew that I was going to play Terran. Terran was the race that I liked the most in StarCraft, so I'll be TheMagicT. That was too long, so I had to cut it short and call myself TheMagicT, and that is it. That is the entire story. There you go. Moving on then, I was going to talk about Dietide system and my sort of conspiracy observation. I'm just going to make it really quick, rather than posing the question about our thoughts on Dietide, because it's going to be with us for a little while longer. My observation is simply that the market thing for selling stuff is so broken and it doesn't work. You can't connect to the market. You can't sell stuff. It blows my mind that Valve don't fix that, because they take a cut of every transaction. And there's going to be so many people out there trying to do transactions right now that them not fixing the problem is probably costing them legitimately hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably. Like $100,000, probably. I mean, it is crazy that they wouldn't fix something like that. It shows how mad rich Valve are that they just don't even care. So, playing the mid-game... Marco, what is the mid-game?
Damn. I mean, set some criteria. I guess I would say 15 minutes to probably 35, maybe 30.
You don't think it starts earlier than 15? Or what are you saying? Are you saying laning stage, early game, mid game, or
early, mid, late? That's fine.
Early, mid, late.
Wow, that's interesting.
To say 10 minutes is the mid game is bull. That is not. No way.
Yeah, I know.
No
it starts at like 8 minutes.
No way. 15. That 15-minute bounty is late. What are you on about? People are still fucking fanning around at 12 minutes. Like, nah. There's no way the mid game starts
like
at 10.
Stan's distinction. I like laning stage, early, mid, late.
But what's the distinction between laning and early or early and mid? It's either laning or it's the mid, so it's either early game or mid game.
There are plenty of heroes that leave the lane at 8 minutes, and cool, therefore the laning stage is broken at that point.
I mean, but then the laning stage could end at 4 minutes. Then,
yeah, 0 to 4. Then the early game is 4 to 8, and then the mid game is 8 to 12, and then everything else is late game.
There's no way 8 minutes is the mid game. People are level 4.
Joking.
Alright, okay.
There's no way that 4 minutes is still the laning stage by every definition. You never see a lane abandoned at 4.
Right.
Not when I've played bad lanes. I'm fucking out of it. No, but this is why it's the early game, because the early game lasts until 15 minutes. Mid game is when we've got more golden XP and the game breaks down a bit more and becomes a bit more fluid, and people start leaving the lane at 10 perhaps and a bit of a rune fight, but at 10 minutes your games are still pretty static. There are 3 lanes, tier 1's still up. I mean, I say 50 minutes as well because at 10 minutes tier 1's still up. At 15 minutes I think you've started to lose 1 or 2 tier 1s, so I think 15 minutes onwards map starts opening, heroes start being stronger XP gold wise, lane, you're not just as rigid to lanes, so I'm sticking by 15 minutes.
Okay. I mean,
I will go to the grave with 15 minutes.
It doesn't matter too much in terms of what we're discussing this episode, whether it's 10 or 15, because I don't feel like it matters that much. Like, what you want to be doing in the mid-game, you can start thinking about and potentially doing at 10 minutes, depending on what your hero is, or at least thinking about, like I said. So it doesn't matter too much about when exactly it starts. Obviously, it's game dependent. In different games, the lanes are going to last longer and stuff like that, depending on heroes and where they want to be. So the mid game, why is it so important? Because to me, when we're talking about 15 to, what did you say, 15 to 30?
Yeah, I also said 35 because most games will be wrapped up by 30 to 35. But when you go beyond 35, it gets a bit more late game.
I would say 30s. 30 plus is like later game. It's not like the late game, but it's like later game. Because to me, I guess I'm particularly interested in the early mid game. So I would say 25 minutes. Before 25 minutes is what I'm like really interested in, because I think that's where games are
decided
kind of. There are certainly games there even at 25, but it's unusual, and I feel like it's hard. Comebacks in Dota are hard. We see them like plenty of times. Take Adam's game for example, but there are plenty more games where a team ekes out a 5k advantage at 20 minutes and that team wins. So I think it's particularly interesting to consider that 10 to 25 minutes or 15 to 25 minutes, say. Maybe that's the early mid game. I don't think it matters too much.
Why don't we just say when when the neutral items drop? Isn't that a pretty good
17?
Tier 7, 17, 27, and 37?
I mean, it's 7 early game, 17 is definitely in the mid game, 27 is in the mid game, 37 it's now late game. That could be alright.
Yeah, sure.
You have early mid game and late mid game between tier 2 and tier 3. I think your objectives are different for each tier or like neutral item drop.
Why is the mid game so important? It seems like a silly question. But what is it about the mid game that decides it? What is it that's unlocked when the mid game is upon us? That there's so much more space, like on the map, up for grabs, right? There's so much more that can be contested versus the laning stage.
I think
it's a snowbally time.
It is, snowbally time, unique time. I think if you think the early game, the game is more rigid because it has to be. You have to be static. You have to farm slowly. You have to just be in those lanes typically because you're just too weak to move and it's too important. Late game, it feels too, it's all about that team fight or it's all about that rush, cheese, push, whatever. It's quite...
Pick-off,
a bit of a pick-off. It's quite a grand time of the game where these big singular moments make the difference. But then in the mid-game, both of those aspects break down and it feels way more strategic in terms of how you're going to eke your advantage. There's more space, like you say, on the map. There's more fluidity because you're stronger and faster and less constrained. There's more space by virtue of towers being down. So the possibilities and potential in that mid-game are way bigger. And so, really interesting time in the game. Really critical, obviously.
Yeah, I just think it's everybody has their spells. But, the early game, the laning stage... can't do anything because everyone's level 2, level 3. Yeah. Then people finally get ult abilities. Maybe you get your first item. Maybe some towers are falling down. Second and third sets of wards are up. You're actually playing the game at that point. And that's when I don't really believe the majority of games are decided in their laning stage. Maybe like 1 out of every 25 games is like, we lost lanes really hard and the game's over. I would think everything is kind of determined in the mid-game section.
Yeah, the laning stage can set you on good footing for the mid-game, but the mid-game is still very contestable because even if lanes have gone not the best, there's still so much room for strategic maneuver and hero placement and stuff in the early mid-game and even in the mid-game that things like that can be turned on their head quite quickly. The laning stage is obviously like something that's built up over the course of the first 10 minutes of the game.
Average population definitely overestimates how difficult it could be to come back from, say, an air quotes lost laning phase. Like Adam says, vast majority of the games will be determined mid-game. Yes, give yourself a nice lead, but the game's not done. 10 minutes, the game's far from done.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and especially at like our level of Dota playing, i.e. like non-professional Dota, a 10k lead in pub Dota is nowhere near the same thing as 10k lead in professional Dota.
Yeah.
It's like so much easier to dig yourself out of a 10k hole in a pub.
Yeah, definitely. Let's break this down by position then. I think that's the easiest way to do it in terms of how you want to be approaching the mid-game. Marco, obviously hero dependent. So as best as you can answer, what are you thinking about from the carry perspective when you're looking into the mid-game?
So with POS 1, I think we've got 2 categories. You've got your, I'm not say greedy, but your more AFK farmer. Let's say you're a spec. You could be a lifestealer. You could be an anti-mage. Or you've got your more active ones we spoke about in the past. Let's say you're Ricky, Ember Spirit. Who else might want to be active in the 1? Those 2 always jump out to me.
Some Ursa hero maybe.
An Ursa,
CK.
Yeah, CK, good shout. So I think those are the 2 broad categories. In the mid game, I think the POS 1's characterized by item spikes and then playing objectives. So obviously the POS 1's role, amass the gold, hit the creeps, hit the lane creeps first and foremost, shove the waves. But then the plays are going to be dictated by when they hit that item timing. Let's say you're Ricky, hit the diffusal, you go, you make use of it. I think most, spike of items, some like a spec, obviously heavily cooldown dependent. He's very obvious. And then aside from item spikes, we've got the objectives. And to be honest, in the mid game, we're obviously throwing a lot of terms like early mid game, mid game, late mid game. But in the mid to late mid game, I think Rosh is the objective, or it's tier 2s, i.e. you've maybe found a gank, the rest of your team's found a gank, some spaces opened, opportunities opened to say collapse 4 heroes on the enemy tier 2, which one, i.e. not the mid lane obviously, but say you can make an objective happen, you can connect and get it, and then you go back to your role of farm, shoving lanes, and go into that next item timing, and when you hit that spike, try and make something of it, like a play, like I said with the diffusal, if you suddenly get it, then try and make a play ASAP, but then you go back to your ways of farming and getting the next item, getting the next objective. So for a 1, honestly, it's not, I don't think that interesting. Maybe if you're an active one, like the Ember CK examples, you would look to do more skirmishing on the back of a key item pickup. But
I think it's also more interesting for those because you've got more of a decision as to where you farm. When you're playing some, just greedy position 1 like the anti-mage, the lifestealer spec sort of examples that we trotted out before, the laning stage breaks, and in that early mid-game onwards, you're sort of thinking about your farming patterns, and where can you most efficiently farm on the map, because now the map's like opened up for you massively. So often, you'll see heroes move away from the safe lane and towards the triangle area and things like that, in an ideal world, and then just take your safe, good farm, like hit your patterns. And then sorry, go on.
Keep going if you want.
I was just going to say versus on the more active heroes where you want to get involved. Obviously, the extent to which you can get involved is game dependent, so that already is a difficult decision that you're going to have to weigh up. Also, you want to have that balance of farm, and this is something we'll probably come on to more for the mid. You want to have that balance of making sure you keep farming, because I think it's really important if you are playing a hero like Ricky or CK that's meant to be active, especially if you've had a poor laning stage, you need to still farm. You need to still have your net worth ticking over. But at the same time, like your hero kit and just the what your hero does, you also want to get involved. You want to be using Chaos Bolt and Reality Rift because they're great spells. You want to be flying in with Ricky, especially once you've got that diffusal. So that balance is something to think about, and you probably want to be trying to find more aggressive farm on those heroes first, and then once you're getting that aggressive farm, you put yourself in a position to get involved without forcing it. You don't just want to like run headlessly where enemy heroes are without thinking about your own game and just thinking, I've got Diffusal Blade on Ricky, like, run to the other side of the map to get killed. Like, you know, it's not quite that simple. You want to still be thinking about your game scaling because you're still playing position 1 at the end of the day.
Yeah, that balance of, it's like, yeah, hero aggression versus farm greed. And yeah, where on the scale are you? And like the Ricky example, if I pick up a Diffusal, in my head, honestly, I'm thinking I'm going to the enemy's neutral camps. Because A, I might find someone there and pick them off if it's like one of the position 1s farming, or someone walks through the woods and I kill them. B, it's farm for me to get, because like you said, I got to keep myself up. And then C, if I go to those deep enemy woods, I'm not showing myself. And yes, I say shove lanes all the time, and that's absolutely true. But say you're a sniper, like in a ninja, shall we say, like Ricky, you have to think, right, I don't want to show myself on the lane when I'm this invisible killer, so I'm going to go farm some enemy neutral creeps that are really aggressive. And then also, I was going to say, you said the term farming patterns, and that is a really good point to highlight for the one in this mid-game period. And it is really important that you think about what your movement, i.e. farming patterns, are as the one. Because even if you are a more passive hero, one of these less like active, form-orientated heroes, you still got to be very mindful of where you're farming. And Adam said it before, it's not how you farm, but where you farm. And I mean, I've played a game recently as Drove, and this is a hero that needs to AFK farm. Oh, go hit the triangle and just go snooze, hit creeps. But it was critical that where I farmed, I was able to connect with my team as well, because it was an immensely active game, lots of fighting. My priority is farming, absolutely, no question about it. But I always had really strong in my head, all right, my movement, I want to make sure that I'm not too far from the team, because it was so active. And there was a good few times, because of where I was farming, I was able to connect on the back of a fight and add that support and get a kill or two and push the enemy back. And it was honestly really pivotal towards then like maintaining that snowball. So really thinking about where your map farm is. Say if you're a spec, it's less punishing because you just press fucking haunt. Or if you're an anti-mage, you've got more license to just completely ignore the team, fine. But really, I mean, even anti-mage, but vast majority of these AFK farmers, you have to be mindful of where you're farming on the map. It is your priority, but you've really got to still keep the bigger picture in mind.
Yeah, to bring it to maybe a slightly higher skill, higher MMR discussion point, I suppose, and that is getting involved, even on the POS 1, even on these snooze heroes. You alluded to it with a hero like Spectre, or it's very easy if you have Haunt up. But say you're playing one of these heroes that isn't quite that extreme, like a Lifestealer, other examples, whatever, just heroes that farm Drow. I mean, it's a fine example as well. What are you looking for, Adam, in terms of getting involved with those heroes? Because people are going to have plenty of games that this ideal world of just hitting your farming patterns hasn't materialized, and they feel a bit of pressure to get involved. Like, to what extent do you want to do that in the mid game? Like, what are you looking for to get involved?
I don't know. It's all game feel, man.
Yeah.
You have your Lifestealer jumping somebody. You know what I mean? Infest somebody. Like TP to a lane. There come times in your farming pattern that it is better for you to TP somewhere else. Like, you've done the farming pattern however many times, and there's nothing left. And TPing to the opposite lane a lot of the time is the optimal thing to do. Why not combine that with fighting off of your TP? I mean, someone like Lifestealer definitely can get involved with Infest, or like with the way Infest is now. Maybe that's something you want to do mid-fight, but like you should definitely like TP somewhere and like smoke. Drow is a big time fighter. It's not like the olden days where you just press the old precision aura and just like siege creeped, global tower pushing. It's you're like totally I guess you would not maybe a skirmisher, but like you rip through heroes at all stages of the game. So
yeah.
So
part of what makes you strong is that you rip through people and then you transition into a tower because you're still like a tower hitter, like Drow. I don't know. There's like a balance to be had between farming and fighting, and it should never be 100% farming. You should always be looking at the bottom left-hand corner at your mini-map and seeing where people are flashing around, seeing if people TP'd out the lane, and if you have numbers advantage and can make things happen.
Yeah, you want to get a kill, right? I feel like for me, if I was playing POS 1 and I see a skirmish happening that I can feasibly get to, in an ideal world, there could be some sort of situation where, it's pretty decent for me to TP and farm and I can get involved with a fight. But especially when you see pro games and when you see very high MMR games, you will see carries TP into fights. But when they do that, it's a mistake unless they're getting a kill. Like,
or they're turning the fight.
Yeah, or they're turning the fight, sure. And even if they don't get a kill for themselves, they're turning a lost hero into a kill for their team. That's also fine. But you mentioned smoking and infesting. That's almost something that I'd be worried to do if I was carry. Like, I wouldn't want to really be a part of smoke plays if I'm a lifestealer 15 minutes in the game.
Yeah. I forgot we're talking about mid-game here.
Yeah.
Like, with lifestealer, it feels so bad to just sit in somebody forever, and like you're just passing all the jungle camps. You're like, please,
like 10
to do something.
13 to 28 minutes. Say, I think there'll be a lot of cases where there are marginal decisions to make where you're farming, say, as a dro, and you could choose to move in one direction or across the map or around the map to go to, say, the next neutral camp or another lane, or you could maybe forego a bit of farm, but get farm by moving in a different direction that moves you a bit closer to your team. And you choose to do that because you see, my team's like postured to try and take a fight, or the enemy's going to kind of come attack my team. So by moving in this direction, still I want to prioritize farm, but I'm allowing myself to be able to connect and link up. Should it materialize into something a bit more? That's a trade-off you should be willing to make. However, you shouldn't be willing all the time to go, oh shit, team's like doing something, let's just completely disregard any like farm ideas to go group up with the team and see what goes down. That happens way too often where the carry just drops everything and goes, guys, I'm here. That is not always, that's rarely the best thing to do.
You want them to be doing something and then you TP to it. That's why the towers are so important, is that so you can do things like that. And the classic example, what Marco was saying, is like, your drow, you're taking the Radiant Ancient Triangle, you're farming that over and over and over again, and you have a literal fork in the road. Like, do I go top and push out that lane, or do I go middle and push out that lane and then work through that side of the jungle? And it comes down, sometimes there's like a juicy wave top with like 6 range creeps, and of course you go there, but if your team is on the opposite side of the map and you don't have a tower, there's no way for you to make any type of response. So it comes down to like, how well is the wave pushed out? And if if you go to the right side and push out the mid, maybe you can link up with your team 15 seconds into them having a skirmish by walking over there, and then you can make something happen.
Which is almost perfect to arrive 15 minutes in.
It's long enough for like the enemy team is entrenched. Like, they have made the decision to have it happen. Like, they can't just walk away without losing people or like just losing towers.
Yeah,
it's like good to land like that 12 to 15 second.
This point about turning up to the fight, I think, is worth stressing, because often you see the POS 1 group up with the team prior to anything happening, and in a way,
that's what I was going to say. I hate initiating fights by everybody. We're just going to walk at the tier 2 tower, and we're just going to let them set up on us.
Yeah, like, exactly.
That's our initiation, is just us sieging a tower. It's like, no.
Yeah, it's so bad.
That's not it.
Here's all our cards. Here's all the information you want. Here, we're all in sight. Here's exactly what we're doing. Like, come, all right, now you can go just fuck us up completely. But also, I feel like when the one does that, or joins the team prior to anything actually happening, it almost gives the team a false sense of power. Like, oh yeah, we've got all of us together, and our carry like fucking 15 minutes in, and you're just wasting minutes doing some weird push or like smoke aggression play when the one could have just been farming all this time, and you didn't need to make this really forceful play or etc. etc. I think if you're the one, you want, like we've said, you want to react to something happening in this mid game period when your priority is to farm and get gold. So ideally, shove creeps, then hit the triangle. Sure, your priority is to get big gold. Only get involved if something appears, or if the enemy overextend, or it's a bit of a fight that you can connect to. You shouldn't be kind of in the charge, like, all right, let's make a play happen at 15 minutes.
Definitely. And that point about our initiation being setting up around a tower, that's a flame corner for sure. That's a flame corner material.
Like, mid, let's go.
That happens way too much. Let's pivot now to the opposite end of the spectrum and talking about supports, and you can take this to be pos 4 or 5. Adam, what's your thoughts on the mid game from a support? You know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say perspective. Yeah, I'm trying to say the word perspective and the word support the other way around.
Well, I've been playing a lot of Forge Akiro, and that usually for me means I'm holding down a lane and pushing it out. Just because Ice Path is so good as like a TPN Ice Path break up a counter initiate type thing. But I think it just comes down to what your 3 cores are, what they're trying to do. Because sometimes the best thing you can do is to hold a lane and push it out. I think we've talked about this quite a bit with like TB rolling through the jungle, and like someone should, in those 3 lanes, there should be somebody sitting there not giving away a tower for free. But then other times, you're the person that's wanting to do the gank setup. The roaming pick squad, the smoke through type of plays, link up with your other support. There's a lot of value to be had in pushing out waves, though. They are like really nice. They're wards. If you push out deep waves, you can always ward on your way back out of the danger area, or just use the wave to tell you where heroes are and force right responses and set up things. But it just comes down to like what your carry is, and then I would say what your 3 is doing. If they're a blink initiator, link up with them, or if they are like 2 minutes away from that next item, make it to where they can get that next item, that type of thing.
I think Adam put it well by saying what you should be doing as the support is dependent on what your cores are doing. I think that's an understated idea that, maybe you don't want to admit because you don't want to be like, oh, you don't want to kind of say that you're doing just what someone else wants you to do. But I do think that optimally, if you're a 4 or a 5, you need to play the game that your cores need and want to play. So if you're like where you're positioned on the map, if you're if you're a 2 or a 3, they need a support though to cast the spell or cast 2 spells to help them secure a kill. What they're going to do, or if they're going to hold the tower, give them some support. If there's a carry that's farming in a bit of an aggressive way, or not aggressive but in a vulnerable way, well, fucking hell, they should have some vision, some protection nearby. Really, like you should be making note of that. If the TB example for you, Adam give, if there's a free lane because they're in the woods, you react to that by going, I'll shove this wave out because no one else is and someone needs to. Like we've said about the mid lane, it's often a dead lane in the mid game because no core wants to be sat in the mid lane where there's inefficient creep and like no way to make a play. You go take it as the support. So I do really think you react to what the cores want to do. If the 2 wants to go make a play down this tower, bloody well go with them and make that happen.
Not enough people sit behind the 1
or the 2,
like when they're aggressively farming and like out of vision. That is like such a high value thing.
I've played countless games as a core and go, I want a support with me. All I need is a spell for you to assist some kill or to give me some protection when it's all about where you are on the map as playing support. I mean, Adam probably can give his view, but having played it again recently, it's all about where you're on the map. I played this Jakiro in ranked. I did one good play, like one notable play where I hit a 3-man ice path, and it was kind of game winning. Not, you know what I mean, Only kidding. But like literally, like the game was very not really like. It's not. You're playing 5. There's not really much you can report. Like you're looking at the highlights, it's like, yeah, what did I really do? But it's all about where you're where you are on the map. And there's this one critical play, fucking 3-man ice path, godlike stuff. You can't make that play if you're not in the right place. And I think 5 is all about being in the right place. And then also the note I've made about 5 in the mid game, a big part is the vision game, maybe a bit more technical, but again, that is about where you are on the map. And I think some players go, I need to do wards, so I'll do wards. But I think what you should do is, primarily, I play around my cores, and then I do wards kind of secondary to that, because where they on the map dictates where the wards need to be. Or even just kind of separate to that, you should be where the cores are, ahead of being like complete opposite side of the map, putting down a fucking observer. I hate it when that happens. And it's like, dude, Nick Day, why are you all the way over there planting a wall? And he's like, oh, you get wards down. I'm like, yeah, get over here.
To maybe spice up I feel like we're mainly focusing on the 5. A couple of points that I have. Maybe I'll talk about the 4 points. It's a little simpler. I'll get that out of the way first. Obviously, when you're playing 4, you need to think about your game a bit more than when you're playing 5, and particularly on some key heroes. Earthshaker, obviously, Tiny, other 4s as well. Jakiro, not so much, but there are some heroes that key items enable them a ton. Blink Dagger being the classic for the 4. You obviously need to prioritize that a lot, and you need to be thinking about how you can get that in while still being active and still providing stuff. You don't want to see your Earthshaker AFK farming in the early mid-game deep in their own woods. That's just not going to happen. So that's something to consider. But also on the 5, we mentioned how it's an assessment of how your cores want to play the game. When you start talking about vision and positioning, I think it's also really important to think about what the enemies want to do as well, or what they're trying to do, because that's going to affect where you're warding a lot, defensive, de-warding particularly, sorry. You need to know, like, they have a very aggressive lineup, or they have a push lineup, blah, 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 blah. Because de-warding is not only critical for the vision game, which is eternally underrated in Dota 2, but also it's just really good for enabling your own game because it gives you good gold and XP. So de-warding is something that I know at the highest level is something that supports. It's almost what they pride themselves on, is like being good at D-wards, and they celebrate a D-ward more than a kill almost.
Yeah,
like it's more
almost
important
as
than a
much
kill.
gold and XP to a support. It's definitely more XP to a support, the gold. Or, sorry, the D-ward. It's so high value.
It's a good point you make about thinking, what does the enemy team want to do? And I see that as... I see it as two sides to the same coin, to be honest. So if you think, okay, what do we want to... Say they've got some kind of passive, quite a farm-intensive lineup. Let's say the Terrorblades in the woods. You as a team... likely
changes what you want to do, yeah.
Yeah, you as a team likely want to go on the offensive, and then so you as the warder, you want to get that ward down, say in the enemy's triangle, or somewhere in the woods that's like in the enemy's woods for the neutral camps. And so it does kind of mirror both. Yeah. You're thinking what the enemy wants to do, and it also fits with what you as a team want to do.
It's kind of the same thing, isn't it? It's sort of like, how do you want to approach the game based on what your heroes are, what their heroes are, and how the game's gone so far.
Yeah.
It's sort of is kind of the same thing.
But then you're right that you could be in games where your team, I guess, are playing incorrectly. Because say this TB case, the enemy team wants to play passive, TB just shoves. If your team doesn't apply pressure, doesn't ward the enemy's team, enemy's woods, doesn't play on the other side of the map, doesn't choke the map out, shove the lanes, etc. In my eyes, you would be playing incorrect, I guess. So, yeah. I think ideally they are two sides of the same coin, but you're right that just thinking about what your team's doing, maybe if they're doing the wrong thing, you could do the wrong thing. You
could encourage them to do the right thing by warding aggressively and being like, come on, boys.
Exactly, yeah, that's a good point.
Let's think about the 3 then, the offlane. This is kind of an interesting one. And I thought that we were discussing what the enemy team want to do, and I almost feel like, maybe this is really unjustified, but I almost feel like that's the most important for the 3. And the reason I say that is because the 3 is a core, like the mid and the carry, obviously. but it's the least important core, and therefore it's the most sacrificial core in a way. And oftentimes, I really feel like in the mid lane, I want my 3 to be the annoying hero that's stopping the enemies doing what they want to do. More so than the mid and the carry. The carry for obvious reasons, and the mid as just a function of that, but less so, being the 2 rather than the 1. I'm thinking of heroes like, say, your Bat Riders, your Sand Kings, your Underlords, Centaurs, whatever it may be. I think this hero is critical for just getting in the way, like being a nuisance, being aggressive. I don't know what you think of that. I
think you've said a fantastic phrase of an idea that's seriously undervalued. What was it? You want to stop the enemy doing what they were doing? What was it?
Stop the enemy doing what they want to do?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that. That idea, I think, is really powerful and not used enough. Because by stopping the enemy doing what they want to do, it's this idea that you're making them respond to the plays you're doing, and you're making them play a game that they don't necessarily want to play. Every team has got an ideal game. If you played against 0 enemy heroes or fucking bots, you've got a game that you would ideally play. I get my items and I go end the game. And it's basically the same in any pub. Certain heroes want to farm certain items and then go. Cool, power spike, fine. You as a 3, primarily, like you say, rather than say a 2, who's a bit of a function of the 1, you want to stop them doing that, and you want to be as a nuisance as possible. You want to make plays or movements or map pressure that makes them change their game plan, or not plan, but changes the way they play the game to a game that's disadvantageous to them because they have to respond and have to react. Too many games, I think, are lost because your team just go, I'm not going to try and play Dota. I'm just going to be pretty passive, not really going to try and make any pressure happen, no map pressure, no aggression. It's kind of passive. And turns out the enemy's team has got fucking 4 heroes that are very happy to play that game, and they play the game, and then they come out with items, and they're naturally better with items, and then they go, oh, GG, easy. Honestly, I think that happens loads, and I think the 3, like you say, is the prime role for disrupting that. You disrupt it, and that's why I've put in my notes. The first point I put was map pressure. I think that is that map pressure, be it in the lanes, be it on the towers, be it kind of roamy trying to make a fight or a skirmish happen with your initiation or something. That map pressure equals disruption, and that equals stopping farm happen and delays timings, and that makes space for your team, and that therefore increases your own timings. Like, it's this really disruptive role that's really powerful.
Comes back to that classic Dota concept of if the off lane in the mid game sacrifices their game to fuck up the enemy carry, that's a win for you. That's a win for you. Like, you're trading your 3 for their 1 in terms of time spent and stuff. And even if it doesn't go perfectly, it's still a massive net value. There's nothing that feels better as a carry. Say you're, a Battle Fury versus Battle Fury, both passive farmy kind of carries. There's nothing that feels better than having a great farming game and seeing your enemy 3 just being bloody annoying to the enemy carry. Sand King running in and just Borrow striking, doesn't even get a kill, but forcing reaction. Suddenly the enemy carry, it's half fighting, half flighting, missing creeps. That is just a great feeling to have, and you need a hero to do that, and the 3's in the best position to start and initiate those sort of moves and get that stuff sort of done, I feel like. How do you feel about the 3, Adam? Does this chime with you? Because you oftentimes... Well, I don't know. You've played more 3 than me, so I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much it. You're the most fluid in what you bring to the table. I mean, if you're a LC, it's like, okay, I need to get my blink. I need to start rolling. I need to get on people. If you're Underlord, it's like, okay, I need to be sat in the face of somebody and just make it obnoxious for them to farm here, or I need to root somebody. Yeah, I think you're just the disruptive person.
And there's many ways to achieve that, right? Because when I think about your 3, I think about some games you've had that are equally as effective of achieving the means we're talking about, where you might just sit in a lane, push it all the way to the enemy tier 2, suddenly putting pressure, threatening a tier 2 tower. That can be just as effective as take the Sand King example again, that can be just as effective as running headlessly towards where the enemy carry probably is, looking for some burrow strike stuff. Like, it's subtle the way that you say fluid, I think that's a good term for the 3. It's subtle, like the ways that you can apply pressure. It's not as just simple.
And it doesn't have to be, like, the word subtle is a good word. It doesn't have to be in your face. Oh, look at me, I just hit a
blink black hole.
Blink, yeah, I've done a massive play, or got 2 heroes, or look at me smoking through the woods. I'm going to make a play. It doesn't have to be as obnoxious as that. It can be subtly, look, I'm taking the enemy's neutral camps. That equals denying them gold. I'm shoving in the wave. That's making vision. Oh, I'm fucking knocking on a tier 2. Oh, look at these 2 supports that I hear that now tells you your POS 1, they have got license to farm elsewhere on the map. Just real subtle things like that make a massive difference.
Yeah, definitely. And the offlane also obviously varies in the heroes as well, specifically. But I almost feel like thinking about the 3 heroes, apart from some niche examples, I actually think they play maybe the most similar. I don't know if that's an outrageous statement, but the ideas are the same. The concepts are the same as what you want to do, but the way that they're achieved is slightly different. You know, if you're an Underlord, you're not going to be actively running around with a blink burrow strike, but you still want to apply pressure, and you still want to disrupt the enemies. You just do it in a different way. Maybe that's something to expand upon another time, and maybe there are position 3 players out there that are screaming at their podcatcher at the moment, maybe, because none of us are big 3 players particularly.
If I think about Centaur, who's my most recent 3 hero, and it went well, and I think about what I want to do in the mid game, tier 1's gone. Or I feel like the majority of my games comprised shoving the off lane into the tier 2, and then going into the enemy's woods and taking their farm, and I'd get decent, right? You get a blink dagger timing, so you got a bit of threat. And then it felt all I was doing was shoving in creep waves, because I'm a fucking POS 3, do that quickly. And then I'm kind of moving around the enemy woods between, say, the side lane and the mid lane, kind of trying to see if any play can happen in terms of connecting with one of my other allies, or if the enemy hero is out of position. So I think that's a big distinction. You don't have to go, I need to get a kill. You can simply, you bide your time. You don't have to force it. We say this all the time. You don't have to force plays or force kills or force movements. You can just kind of slowly farm, get the objectives in the right place, get the map vision in the right place, get the lanes in the right place. Oh, enemy's out of position. We find a kill and continue. So it's very, yes, like you say, subtle, a bit natural. And yeah, you're applying pressure like that. Oh, you want to come farm the creeps? I'm going to kind of hit you and make you move away. Oh, enemies came to try and kill me. Oh, what's it called? Stampede away. Like, oh, space creation, and wait for that opportunity, and it'll eventually show. I think, yeah, in the mid game, if you're playing from behind, like a pit lord, and the game's not easily in your favor, you might think, oh, bloody hell, I can't be out on a side lane pushing creeps, because then I'm going to die. But then it comes back to, well, what are your supports doing? Are they not with you, like waiting to back you up and waiting to turn a kill? Or are they not with you kind of putting wards down in an aggressive way where you can see the enemy come for you? Like, you can't just think of the game with you and nothing else. Like, there has to be a bit of a bigger picture to it. And I think people play too negatively sometimes, particularly position 3s, very particularly position 3s. Like, you have got to be a disruption to the game. And if you're really passive or defensive or scared, I feel like you're not doing anything, and you're not doing your role then.
Yeah. Also, we talk about disrupting. That definitely applies to when you're behind. We talk about these plays of disrupting the enemy carry, stopping him from farming, but when I think about my 3 that I've played the most, and that's Pit Lord, again, a hero that I've had a lot of success with in rank, climbing. What do I want to do in the mid game? And to switch it on its head and say it's not a very favourable game, it's not going great, I want to soak up the enemy pressure as much as possible. When I think about playing Pit Lord, I think about pushing out waves with my Q, like Marco said, like the centaur example, that is the starting point. And then beyond that, I want to go to the part of the map that's causing the most distress for our team and just put myself there and dispel that with a Firestorm and being Underlord and a Trophy Aura. Like, I want to put myself in the most I need to be in every team fight as Underlord, and because I'm the strongest hero in the game at defending an area, at putting myself in a region of the map that, for our team, that's going to massively dispel any pressure that's on that area of the map. So, for a hero like Underlord particularly, but also for most threes, that's a way of approaching games that you're behind, Sit behind a tower and push it out with Q if they're bringing 4 or 5 heroes to push in your tier 2. You have to be there. You have to be the first one there as well. There's no use. You're not a carry that's TPing in late to things. You have to make sure that you're never letting the enemies realize the threat, realize the pressure that they're putting on the map and turning that into an advantage, because you're a hero that can dispel that exceptionally effectively. Or let's squeeze out the mid. Let's squeeze out the mid for 5 minutes, maybe 10. Mid, Marco, we were talking about this today actually, about the mid lane for approaching the mid game. Would you say this is the most difficult, or were you just saying that to appease me?
No, I do think it's most difficult. I do. You're dear to my heart. But
thank you.
I do think the mid's difficult. It's not just appeasement.
Thank you. It's quite hero dependent. I mean, maybe given that Adam wasn't privy to our conversations, maybe Adam, you can lead off with some comments about like mids, especially because I think the mids that you play are maybe a bit of a different perspective. How do you feel about approaching the mid game from the mid player? God, so much saying mid about 50,000 times this episode.
Mid-lich?
I remember seeing this infographic about what your mid picks say about you, or like what like the different genotypes of players or something, where like
yeah.
Somebody, you don't normally play mid. What mids do you play? And those are the ones that I do. It's like Razor and Viper. It's like the ones like, I'm in this really important role. I don't want to mess it up and just lose it, so I'll just pick a lane dominator. It's almost like a 3 from the mid type of a thing. Yeah, I don't know. It just depends on if you're like the farmy mid. Are you a TA or are you a tempo mid? Like what's a tempo mid right now? Like Puck. I didn't think Puck was particularly popular, but like Quap, those type of things. Are you the one like going around and dishing out magic damage and controlling the pace of the game, or are you the one that's sideblading camps? Or like, I won't say Medusa's a mid, but there are a couple of, or like an OD that takes a lot more time to come online for a little bit before you start.
Yeah, and then there are also the threes, like you said. There are more sort of a pressure orientated green hero style of mids as well out there. So it definitely
the heroes
is very,
that take
very
advantage of the level, like the XP that you get from the middle.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Marco, do you have thoughts? I don't know to what extent you want to rehash stuff that we were discussing earlier, or fresh thoughts on mid from the mid lane.
Adam's way of putting the off lane from the mid, that's definitely a good category. And then, so that's like, you're playing the 3 from the mid. Viper, Razor, Pugner. You get my point. And then you got there's a couple hard farmers. TA's the classic. Maybe OD a bit.
Drow mid's very popular now.
Yeah, so that's kind of like playing the 1 from the mid, and then
morph mid you see as well. But yeah, sorry, go on.
True. The majority, I would say, has to be the classic, particularly in this meta, the classic conventional tempo mid. And I do think it's difficult hero or position to play in the mid game because you have got, it's almost a finer balance of farming and aggression and hero aggression and objective aggression. And it also, I feel like the decisions that you have to make are harder and less clear cut than it is for a 1 or a 3. I think it's much easier for the 1 or the 3 to do the right thing. And bad plays are a bit more obvious. But with the 2, you've got to find farm, but then you've also got to find farm in the right place. So the discussion we were having earlier today, say we're a leaner, there's tempo. It is tempo, but it needs farm. Then that comes back to Adam's oracle point about it's where you find farm on the map, and that where you find farm on the map allows you to translate getting gold into also applying pressure. So this idea of, are you getting gold from your neutral camps or from the enemy neutral camps? Same gold, but you're in a different place entirely. And if you're in the enemy neutral camps, maybe that there's an opportunity to get a kill, get a tower. This one game in particular that me and Stan were talking about, the enemy had a drow safe lane. Never once was you or your team in Drow's lane. And I felt like in the mid game, when you were hitting neutral camps, you could have hit neutral camps that were near Drow's lane in the safe lane. And by hitting those enemy camps, you would potentially find yourself with a kill opportunity. Or I mean, it's kind of what the 3 should have been doing, but I know your calls are a bit shit. You nuke one of her waves, make Drow last hit under the tower, say, and now you've got pressure, and it's harder for Drow, and she's a bit more vulnerable. So I think for the tempo mid, it's key that you get your gold, but it's also key that you gain it in the right place, and that you're thinking about where are the opportunities to exploit the enemy team, because you will be able to exploit them. You're one of the strongest heroes on the map by quite a margin. Think about having Laguna or Scream of Pain, or you as a mid in the early mid game are relatively very strong, and you've got to leverage that, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. We talked about getting that balance right. I think that's difficult to get right, is that you have the highest potential on the map, for sure, for the reasons that you just said. You've got the most XP. Oftentimes you've got the most gold too. But you can't do it by yourself. I think it's difficult. Sometimes you can, sure. Sometimes, you're just going to get yours on Lena and get a solo kill, and it's great, and that's an ideal world. But take an example like Storm Spirit, Monkey King, for example. These are 2 heroes that I think illustrate it well for me personally. You can't do things by yourself very easily. You need your teammates, and by do things, I mean kill enemies, basically. So how do you navigate that? Well, Marco's point is really, really good, and one that I'm definitely going to try and apply to my games more, is that if you farm more aggressively, first of all, you're still making a choice on the spectrum of farm to get involved, and you're not just forcing a move by going really hard, man, in this game I really need to get on this drow ranger that's free farming, so I'm just going to go and kill this drow by myself, or try and go force a move. Because oftentimes in pubs that won't work, because your teammates might not be on the same page. They might be wanting to do their own thing. So you don't want to just force it by doing that. But if you farm aggressively, first of all, you're subtly disrupting the drow's game anyway by there's less camps for her to kill, there's less space for her, etc. And also it encourages your team to sort of get on the same page anyway. And just by being in the vicinity, something might materialize where you get a little 3-on-2 skirmish that happens or something like that. So I think that's definitely a good point. What makes the mid hard for me is that you almost need to walk the line. You need to walk both sides of the line. Whereas I feel like when you're playing the carry, you can just choose to be AFK carry and only take really favourable engagements, and that's a fine decision, and that's not going to negatively affect you. When you're playing the 3, you can choose to play very, very aggressive, very disruptive, quite sacrificial. That's going to be fine. Or you can play and farm a bit and farm aggressively, that's you'll make that choice and you're going to be okay, more or less. But I think on the mid, if you choose to do one or the other, oftentimes it's like a game-losing decision, where for the other roles, I don't think it's necessarily a game-losing decision. I know there's been plenty of times where I've decided I'd really want to get involved on a Storm or a Monkey King or a Tempo mid or something, and I forced it so much that when it doesn't work out, I've like destroyed my game, and it was almost like a game-losing decision for me to try and get involved so heavily. And I've also had games where I've been AFK on some, hero, like some leaner not getting involved. Take this game that we were just talking about, where I'm hitting neutrals in my own jungle and farming very well. I'm top of the net worth in this game. This game we're talking about, I'm top net worth. I'm highest level as well. It's quote unquote a great game. But I've chosen on this spectrum of farm versus fight, I've chosen to go very heavily farm, and ultimately it's a game losing decision because I need to skirt that line. I need to do both. I can't choose one or the other. If choosing one or the other will be really bad because of the nature of the two. So that I think is like the critical thing to get right when you're talking about the mid game.
I think the start of the mid game for the mid laner, it is more feasible to achieve both the farm and the hero or objective aggression. I think the start, I think it is achievable. Like I mentioned with your game, say 14 minutes in, 12 minutes in, I think you'll get the same farm going to Dro's lane as you would from just like kind of doing your mid lane and neutral camp farming. But I think then later into the mid game, it becomes more of a distinct decision of, is your movement and involvement, really focused on the fighting and skirmishing and trying to make something happen, versus is it continuing to be AFK farming. And I think that line is the hardest one to walk.
Well, I think the reason it's hard is because you have to do both. I think you have to do both, apart from in, freak cases where you can just play Naga mid and win. You have to do both, whereas I think the other roles you can do one or the other and it's going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you do, but then with the mid, if you do one of them a bit too much, it can be very detrimental.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Just kind of a small deviation.
Sure.
Like literally this Lena game, it's just slightly too much focus on I need to farm, and then it kind of snowballs against you. But the pos 1, pos 3, it's rare that small deviation of playstyle is going to be that damaging.
Yeah.
I think, so that's why I do think that the 2 is hardest. Like it's kind of mid game hardest to get right.
Yeah, I think so. And Adam's been mentioning the sort of off lane from the mid, and Viper's one of my most played mid heroes, and that definitely is in that category. A hero like that's I wouldn't put that into the mid game's hard to play category for mid laners, because
it's straightforward.
It's very straightforward because you tick both the boxes of farm and, quote unquote, get exactly, because you're focused on towers and objectives and sitting in a lane. So you're pressuring and you're farming at the same time, whereas the tempo mids, you nuke a wave out, you're not the kind of hero that can sit in space, because if you see a Lina just attacking a tower, the enemies are going to lick their lips and think, look, here's this hero that's just a sitting duck that's very weak. It's not the same as a Viper with Nevertoxin and whatever the ult's called that I can't remember, even though I've played 200 games.
Viper Strike?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Got the hero's name in the title.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are definitely pods 3s from the mid, which have a much easier game plan and execution.
Pugner's not a pos 3 from the mid, though. I'd dispute that.
Yeah, 2.5.
2.5. Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's certainly not transitioning into a right clicker, so maybe he's definitely not a 1.5. 2.5, I think, is fair.
Yeah.
Adam, do you have any other points to make about the mid? I mean, I feel like I have to ask you, given that we just rambled on for about 10 minutes.
I don't have. I mean, that's like my least played role, so I don't have a whole lot to. I mean, I think you guys hit it on the head. I was going to say a lot of my downfall with the mid is not knowing once like the middle tower falls or like the landing stage breaks down, it's like, where do I farm? You know, it comes down to like where am I getting farm from? Because like I don't want to be halfway up their middle lane getting these lane creeps, but then my other cores are in the opposite two lanes, and then I don't want to use all my mana to farm jungle camps. So it's kind of a awkward stage.
Another thing that I want to point out that you've reminded me of in terms of what to do once the mid tower's done is I think on the mid as well, you need to be cognizant of your carry as well. It's very easy and obvious to think, well, my off lane's a Sand King and my position 4's a Tusk. So let's go run around with a little gank squad. Let's play in those areas, play away from my carry. And that, you know, Bob's your uncle. That's like what you want to be doing. It's quite simple. But I think you also need to be cognizant of what your carry wants to do, how strong your carry is, and at what point in the game your carry is going to be coming in. Because I certainly have plenty of games where my carry doesn't have the best start, and I know that the win condition, which is a loaded term in Dota, but an example I had recently was like a PA that I know needs to carry us in the game, provides all the damage. So I'm going to really go ham and sort of sacrifice my game so that this PA can recover. And it's going to hurt me. I'm definitely going into the more aggro side of things versus farm, the more fight side. But that's a choice I've made, not based on my hero as such, but based on my carry and the game state as a whole. So you need to be making those kinds of assessments. Likewise, if you've got a carry that's very more aggressive, that's had a better start and is able to hold their own more and is looking to be involved a bit more, gives you a bit more license to focus on your own game because you know that your carry doesn't particularly need to be helped. Also, I think, just in terms of winning the game, thinking about when your carry is going to be strongest, when you're going to be power spiking, and aligning yourself with that. To me, this is especially important on a hero like Viper. Viper falls off. If you're playing, I've played Underlord mid a couple of times, similar sort of deal. These threes from the mid, I always want to align my power spike with my carry because Viper will fall off hard. So I know that there's going to be one critical moment when my carry gets involved where we need to kind of win the game as 5. And so back when I was spamming Viper for the climb a lot, I'd always want to have Greaves when my carry was strongest. Like when my carry's getting involved, we've got a PA. When's PA getting BKB? Okay, I need Greaves by that time. And so I'll edit my item build to go that way. Or we've got some Lycan, I'm going to go Greaves first because Lycan's going to have Necro 3 and then it's go time. So I think especially when you're playing these non-tempo 3 from the mid style heroes, you really want to align your own spike with that of your carry, So that's the classic example is I'm going to go Atos to create space, to be annoying, to be a threat, etc., etc., etc. And then maybe I might go, Dragonlance Greaves, or just straight Greaves, depending on how far away my carry is from that critical BKB or whatever the item is. So it's just that's another thought, I think, in particularly relevant to the position 3 from the mid mold.
I've got a final, moving away from the positions and just a general final point I've got would be, for the mid game, don't try and force it. Too many games are lost by trying to force plays, be that gank attempts, smoke attempts, tower attempts. Far too many games are lost by placing too many eggs in those baskets when there's just no need to. There is no, unless you've got a roast in the oven or something, you got to fucking kick on. There is no need to go, all right, guys, creeps aren't pushed, items aren't farmed, XP isn't quite there, but let's fucking smoke into the enemy woods, or let's go knock on this tier 2. There's just no reason for it. Just don't force it. Take it chill. Just get your creeps in order. Put that map pressure in a subtle way. Get the shove the creeps in. Even just dominate an area with 4 heroes, dominate the enemy woods for a bit. Alright, they can't farm. They're now having to react and move away from you. And they know that area is dangerous, so they have to go elsewhere on the map. And okay, it's just a bit of space, bit of time. play to your timings, like you say with the items, that's fine. An opportunity appears, you take it, but you don't have to make it happen. And I think people forget that, and they think I have to make something happen. I've got chrono, I've got to fucking do it.
They get
the time
conflated with the late game, where it's a situation whoever gets a good initiation wins, and maybe that's a conflation a little bit in the mid game. Because in the mid game, I feel like we've all seen games where the team almost wins without even doing anything, just from being reactive to like overzealous, hyper aggressive, like forced plays.
Yeah,
that they just react to it and they win the game without even doing anything. So yeah, definitely don't give the enemies a chance to do that.
And it is tough because we have said, yeah, you need to be aggressive and put pressure on the enemy safe laner by going across the map and stuff. But that idea shouldn't get conflated with over-aggression and trying to force it too much and going too deep and going too ham and staying at the tier 2 too long, or even just going, let's go tier 2. Like, we need to find a bit more of a medium, I think.
Yeah, it's subtle. Applying pressure is a subtle concept. It's not like the late game where you know you won't win the game unless the enemy carry is literally dead. Like, late game situation, the throne's not dying unless the carry's dead. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
But in the mid game, applying pressure to set yourself up for later stages, that's a subtle concept. That doesn't translate into we have to kill the enemy carry. Okay, let's smoke, bring 4. Do you know what I mean? It's not the same thing. Well, there you go. I think it's been a good topic. I like talking about the mid game. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it probably doesn't get enough love.
The early mid game, the late mid game,
mid.
Mid.
Yeah. I believe next weekend, Adam, you can confirm this. Next weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. Is this true?
Next weekend.
Yeah.
Or next Thursday.
Actually, it's next Thursday, Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Okay. So, not set in stone confirmation, but it looks like, I think we'll probably take next week off. So probably no pods next week. It occurred to me today that TI didn't even happen. So our usual sort of 3 week break after TI, we didn't do it this year. So considering that the patch is dragging on, maybe we're probably going to take next week off and then come back the week after with hopefully a big patch plus hero episodes to kick us off again. We'll see about that, and as always, check the Discord. Any news about episode not happening, etc., will be posted there. Link in the description for the Discord if you're not a member already. Join the guild, etc., etc., etc. Like and review, and just be a general good person, and start crushing the mid game. And until then, have a final whistle.